I just pressed start and you're like, do you have the alcohol? Did you smuggle the child? No, don't edit it. This is like totally raw. Okay, I'm Froskurinn. I'm here with Kelsey Moser, and I'm actually also here with a good friend of ours, TEPS from Gold for 10.
Thank you.
There we go. Anthony, TEPS. For our MSI breakdown, we were going to do originally kind of like a China Talk breakdown. That said, schedule conflicts, obviously it's very late here. We're literally sitting in our hotel on top of a bed in front of a laptop with like the jankiest internet you could ever, I don't even know. Great hotel place though. So what we're going to do though is we're going to cover the EDG versus SKT match. And we're going to detail in grueling specifics everything that went wrong. So here we go. This is like the most high profile you've ever seen. We're going to start in draft phase. Kelsey, did you, because obviously you were in the press.
I watched this event on the floor.
Oh, you watched it on the floor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's what I thought was the super curious thing. Obviously, first and foremost, let's take a look at the rosters. SKT is running EasyHoon. I paused it.
Okay.
Yeah, hello? Bro, calm down. SKT are running EasyHoon as opposed to Deb's like, I can't deal with this right now. Running EasyHoon as opposed to Faker. So we have our theory of why that happened. Kelsey, why do you have your theory?
I think that EasyHoon is a better matchup against Pawn because EasyHoon, like the way that EDG plays, Pawn tries to be completely ridiculous and overextend and be extremely aggressive, but EasyHoon is a very conservative player, so he's not very susceptible to that kind of playstyle or losing or getting a disadvantage to it. So I think that he's a very smart matchup against Pawn, especially his like champion pool in particular is pretty conservative. Already we see Edward Gaming banning Cassiopeia because they don't want him to play like that kind of reaction pick.
And
another pick that we're going to see coming here too is Azir, which is basically the only two times we've seen EasyHoon being like aggressive player is when he plays both Azir and Cassiopeia. So by banning these out, we're forcing him onto this particular playstyle, which is what EDG wants in this matchup.
Well, the other thing that I really wanted to touch on, which is far more obvious, is that by taking EasyHoon in here, I mean, obviously it's also a strategic advantage. Like we talk about strategic advantage. We talk about how LGD, they play Acorn and Flame because you have these two vastly different play styles, and you can kind of shift your entire team and like priorities and styles based on subbing these two players out. But SKT are really the only team that have done this efficiently by swapping Faker and EasyHoon. Yes, they have overlapping champions, but they have very, very different play styles. And it's almost like a mind fuck, essentially. Like, if we beat you with EasyHoon, which obviously will put you off the back foot, because just alone, Pawn has a great history with Faker in a 1v1 matchup, then when it comes to the finals, that's something that they're not prepared. Like, the next time that they face SKT and it's Faker, that's like there's no preparation for that in the most current event.
They've also conserved their champion picks, so EDG, if assuming they have to play the finals tomorrow, are completely blind of what Faker is going to pull out as far as in a high profile match such as this.
Okay. So here we go. I was actually really curious to see the Hecarim ban from Blue Side, and we've actually seen this. Did they also do that for TSM? I can't remember. And likewise the Urgot. So Urgot SKT picked from Blue Side against their TSM match, which was a great pick because they flexed it between the AD carry and the mid.
It's a very common first pick in LCK.
Yeah, I know that there's an overprior, not maybe an overprior, but they play it more than the other Shining regions.
It's a higher threat.
Because TEPS, you have more experience with the Korea scene. Why do you think they banned Hecarim here from Blue Side? Because typically, like in the Western region and in China, that's a first pick, like instantly, and you would never ban it from Blue Side. You would save that.
I think the playstyle they were going for here, since they also had EasyHoon, is something usually more scaling, and they wanted to have something more safer in the top lane. Like what I was predicting that they were going to pick here was going to be a Maokai, usually a second rotation, which is very common for SKT. But instead, I believe they went with Rumble this game. Okay, and then in this particular sense, they don't want like any kind of like super carrying potential out of the top lane, which happened anyway. But normally, what they usually want him on something such as Gnar or Maokai, usually something to default on, and that's what the playstyle they kind of pushed into. But I don't think it unfortunately didn't happen. But I think that's what EDG's plan was in this.
Okay.
The SK Telecom.
So we have a game where Faker's not in it, and we have 4 mid bans. a top ban and a jungle ban. So Gragas is a pretty standard.
The other thing about the Urgot ban is that excuse me, never mind, they're blue side.
Yeah, it's weird. But the first pick then is Callista. And we talk about how I think it was revealed in the cast that Bang was 5-0 on Callista. It's always taken away from him. And even if you go like historically with EDG in the very previous final that they had played against LGD, they banned Callista every single game.
Mm-hmm.
So, what the fuck?
I mean, again, my theory is that Clearlove can't ban Gragas, so you have to ban Gragas already. So are you going to ban Gragas?
Because he can't play it? Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're going to ban Gragas and Callista, then like that, you can't do... They prioritize the mid lane bans, obviously.
Against EasyHoon. So, like, what the fuck are they going to do when Faker's in there? And he's actually a guy that demands... Because if Faker's here, one of these bans has to be LeBlanc.
Right. Well,
but in the same sense that they probably don't have an Azir ban because EasyHoon's most successful.
Have you seen his highlights?
Well, the playoffs in particular, especially in the finals, were mainly the Azir and Cassiopeia. But during the regular season, it was nothing like that, essentially.
And likewise, you can also run a denial with the Azir because
Exactly.
Pawn also plays it. Okay. From here, I'm like, okay, so there's the Callista. This is exactly what SKT want. They got Bang on his champion. I'm thinking Rek'Sai right out the gate. Spoiler alert, they don't pick Rek'Sai. We see the Hover, the Shyvana, we see the Thresh. I actually liked this initial rotation because it's hard to say. The scary thing about Shyvana is that Gnar works so well into Shyvana because now so many Gnars are itemizing the Frozen Mallet, and it's just so good to walk Shyvana down. It doesn't work as well on Hecarim just because he has a more immediate escape with the Onslaught of Shadows, just because it's going to cover... You know, it's just like a get-out-of-free jail card where her Descent of the Dragon is effectively the same thing. Now, the reason why it's picked up in tandem as far as like a second rotation, this is almost like a Morgana Vi rotation. Because Thresh is the counter to Shyvana. Typically, like when teams see a Shyvana, they'll pick up a Thresh. Because the idea is that when Shyvana comes down into the backline, again, she's using her gap closer as the animation to get back down there. Thresh drops his box, and then this little gecko in the backline is slowed, and she can't really go anywhere. And likewise, you also have like the lantern. Whereas like Hecarim, why Thresh doesn't work as a counter is because his Onslaught of Shadows is not going to be affected by the box. So I liked this initially when I saw it, and then it just got so much fucking worse.
yeah.
Why? Why are they not looking at Rek'Sai here? Because this is...
Well, we know the two picks.
Right,
that
because
really
they wanted to play a more conservative style, they said.
Okay, so what did Aaron say?
So in the Chinese broadcast, they interviewed Aaron after the match. And he said that Deft and Pawn wanted to just play safe and try to minimize chances for early game mistakes. So they said they wanted to pick Lulu with a late game scaling 80 carry, and they wanted to build their composition around that. And again, like the backlash was about this. I think it was just more like they wanted to give it a try because it's a best of one group stage match. Like, why not?
But why are you not picking up your jungle in this first rotation?
Because they would, in that particular instance, like Sejuani is going to be, like if you're prioritizing late game scaling and team fighting, they would want to pick the Sejuani over the Rek'Sai.
No, I totally understand that, but you can do that earlier.
Like, I know, you can pick up the Sejuani earlier, but they would
obviously
want
these picks allow you to look at everything and to like really build your comp, but it's just like I don't think that Lulu is a contested pick here.
I don't think either, but I think it's more that with the jungle, you can't like hate draft it from them. Like they're Clearlove and Bengi have so much overlap. Like they both play Rek'Sai, Nunu.
And you're pretty confident that Bengi is going to pick Rek'Sai because he has made the statement that that's his most comfortable champion. He doesn't think he's actually even that comfortable on other meta picks right now, which he got it all day today. So it's like awkward. The fact that the guy himself has said Rek'Sai is my like the champion I could play right now, and everyone's just letting him have it all the time.
So I believe when we were watching the game, Ryan, the biggest Froskurinn, the biggest thing that we
What the fuck did you call me?
The other thing is the reason why I think they picked Thresh early also is, first of all, it's a contested
well, it's because
pick,
it's
but they don't
Callista
want it with-
Thresh, yeah.
They don't want
like this
Callista
makes
Thresh.
sense. The Lula, I'm like, that's not a fucking contested pick right now. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I thought they actually were going to pick Ziggs here. Like I thought this was completely
Yeah,
going
I
to
did
happen.
too. I thought it was.
I thought this was like a solid lock. Like the Rek'Sai was almost sure coming, but Zig seemed to fit in perfectly.
The problem
But
here
again,
is,
though-
but here's the problem of like not picking up the jungle. Like if you know that you're gonna be playing Lulu, you're gonna be playing like a passive support, and yeah, Lulu can technically be a flex pick, so you get some power there, like picking it early in a rotation. But we really haven't seen it top lane much in China. I mean, only a few top
Is
laners.
Easy like even that much of a Lulu player? I thought that's like even more of a Faker
No,
pick.
Faker actually
Yeah.
defaults. I mean, he's played it, but it's like I think only once. I would say.
The other weird
But by picking a
thing-
late game scaling composition, like if they knew this going in, if this is the strategy that they shift to, you need to take bridge champions to make sure that you
I
get set up to get into late game. And yes, Sejuani does work very well for late game wombo combos and providing a front line and that insane tank. And yes, Sejuani is a very strong jungler. But if you're going to go this route, taking an early jungle like Rek'Sai, to me, is so much more beneficial from like draft phase perspective because you need something to get you through the fucking first 10 minutes of the game.
And I think they were maybe even thinking about that being as Lulu, but and he does pick Vladimir eventually, but Vladimir isn't gonna get ganked by like yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
Another big thing too that was really odd is that SKT did not take Nara away, and I thought that'd be like an obvious hate draft pick.
What the fuck?
Stop touching things.
I just got ejected out of.
Okay.
So EDG gets the Nara, which was most likely expected for Kuro.
See, at this point when he's hovering Graves, I'm like, okay, he's hovering Graves because they're thinking about going into a 2v2. Because typically the idea is that Graves is one of the only champions that can stand toe-to-toe with Kalista just because he's so naturally tanky. But the thing that people always need to understand is that for the longest time, Kalista Annie was like the 2v2. Like, that shit was intense. It was like a Graves Leona with double Ignite if that's stacked kind of lane. You know what I'm saying? Like... But, like, the fact that they have the Lulu and then they shifted up and then, like, last pick the Tristana seems really weird as far as, like this as a draft phase looks super disjointed to me, that they don't really understand what direction that they're going. Are we going for the 2v2? Are we going for the lane swap? Are we going for a late game hyper scale? Like...
And they're also picking a lot of matchups blind here. Like, we don't know top lane or mid lane here, and they have both of those locked in, which gives them so much, like... If SKT1 really wants
well, he's going to assume that it's going to be either Rumble, Maokai, or Shyvana.
Well, they could pick something like they said, like even like
Cassiopeia.
Well, it's not what's banned, but yeah, something of that nature, like a more of like a lane bully, and just try to like they could focus on just an individual lane matchup. They obviously don't go that route, but they could because.
And like the Vlad pick is so safe because the only lane that has any pressure is like Lulu, and Lulu Sejuani isn't gonna really gank a Vladimir very effectively.
He is safe to play this Gnar though blind because he knows that he's playing it into a lane swap.
Okay, that is true. I think another interesting thing here is too when they take the Rumble that they know that at this point, like it's obviously it's most definitely going to be a lane swap, but it just gives them pressure too, like what eventually does happen in this game, like when they swap back, that they really need to abuse this lane swap as long as possible in order to maximize their advantage. If they at all try to do like a straight 1v1 or 2v2, both of these matchups are actually horrible.
Obviously, like they're hovering the Corki because they want something that's like somewhat safe again, like with an escape. So, like the big criticism people got is why didn't you just pick Jinx or Sivir? But he doesn't want that because he wants an escape, obviously, and it's just. I don't know. I feel like the over-prioritization on the escape was an issue. Even if it isn't Annie, right?
Just look at the power spikes, like, across and how they overlap here. Kalista and Annie are going to have an absurd level 2, and then they're going to have an even more absurd level 6. Like, the gank potential is just insane. Rek'Sai is going to be an early scale, like, an early power jungler who's going to scale really well into mid-game and then late game be that tanky, unstoppable force. Rumble's going to be fantastic on dragon fights when he gets his level 6 and a level 11 respectively, and then he's just going to be, like, that AoE utility style that they need. Fucking Vladimir is going to hyperscale into late game. Every single thing is covered. And then Kalista, of course, is also technically a hyperscaling late game ADC just because she's so cost efficient in her itemization. And then we were talking about this. The problem with a hyper carry into
is the item
Kalista,
deficiency.
yes, it's like the 2-item power spike on Kalista when she has her BT and her Hurricane versus the 3-item power spike for Tristana, the Last Whisper, the Shiv item, whether it be Shiv or Phantom Dancer, the Zeal item, I guess you should call it, and the BF item, typically an Infinity Edge.
And you could say another thing too, same thing with the AP picks here too, like even with Rumble and Annie, like they obviously have much more team fighting presence than most of EDG's lineup in the early fights, which is
And just in general, there's not really, because you have the Lulu, you have no answer, like no mid-game threat at all, while Tristana is farming her third
To
item.
me, I look at this and I'm like, there's a window between possibly like 15 minutes to 30 minutes where EDG are completely helpless on the map. Like, they will not be able to contest anything because Callista will have hit her power spike and Lulu will have hit that point where her lane bully dominance is faded over into her utility, but she doesn't have an AD carry strong enough to compete for a 5v5.
And at this point, everyone is wondering what the fuck EDG is
yeah.
doing.
Literally,
I think that
the-
Tristana is the biggest. You know,
Yeah.
no one. I don't think anyone would have expected Tristana.
But you
to come
said
out
it
this
best.
series.
I was sitting
I
next
think
to...
Severe was like by far the best pick. It gives him a solid form of engage, and
If you
a way
just
to-
take Tristan
yeah.
out, slip Severe in there, take Lulu, slip Ziggs, that's a great comp.
it just makes the team fighting so much more like crisp. Like when they have like a Severe and the Sejuani running at them, like they can actually contest the fights. When they have this Tristana, they're just literally conceding everything. Like this, what are they gonna do?
The other thing is that the fact that they're playing a Tristana and Deft has only played Tristana once in like 44 regular season games, 13 Demacia Cup games, and I guess there's 15 Demacia Cup games and 13 playoffs games. Like once out of all those games, he's played a Tristana, and he won, but it was like actually a pretty underwhelming game. So I don't really understand why they would choose to bring it out here.
Are these comfort picks for SKT? Like, if Binky's...
SKT,
If
everyone has
Rek'Sai's
a
his, like,
comfort pick
favorite
here.
champion...
Rumble is the second most played for Marin. Annie was very, very popular during the beginning of the season, even though it wasn't successful for
I mean, on the
Wolf.
same token, though, like,
Callista
Clear Love...
obviously Bang's most signature champion.
Clear Love's...
Rek'Sai most comfortable for Bangi right now.
Literally the only players who aren't on comfort picks on EDG are the Koreans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mid and AD carry.
Okay, so it looks like we have a pretty standard invade to check for a lane swap, which obviously this is important for EDG to get their lane swap wards down because that's what they're looking for, so they want to make sure that they're getting the correct matchups. What I find curious here is that SKT doesn't actually go for the counter ward where they step forward into the Gromp. Instead, they look for the flank, which is actually really creative because then we get this great play that Marn does. So I thought that this was actually a really great adaptation to, because in a standard game, like 99% of what we would watch, instead of Annie and Callista collapsing onto the mid lane, they would just run into the Gromp area, place a ward, like, that's fine, we'll just trade vision. But here, they know that they have the stronger level 5, and they're like, we're here to fuck shit up. Although they had to play this perfectly, because if, like, collapsing down, if one person's out of position, like, you're just gonna get screwed. What did Callista take? She hasn't put down any sprites, so...
What's up with red? Okay, so there's a flash.
Yeah.
Stuns off.
Mako has to burn his flash.
But more importantly, like, it's not just, like, the trading of the flashes. Like, you can say that's fine, the support's just trading flashes. But it's the back timer and the fact that now they know what side of the map they're on. So if EDG want to force the lane swap, they're going to lose even more time in the lane and in the creeps.
This feels so small, but at the same time, like, this is gonna, like, the whole part of this game is all about this lane swap. Because, like, EDG is so dependent on it, where SKT is not as much. I guess they have a bad top lane matchup, but they can really outduel them in almost any lane.
Yeah, and so they choose to force the lane swap here, and they lose time.
Should I do 2 times speed?
Oh,
Huh?
Well, the most important part is like the first 5 minutes, so we'll watch the first 5 minutes.
One slowly.
I was just gonna really do it until it's just done and done. But I think the second dragon, I was like, this game is so over.
Yeah.
This draft is already an atrocity.
Okay. So he starts red buff, he goes for the level 2 gank on top. Now, the reason that they're doing this, although I'm trying to pause it, the reason that they're doing this is because obviously EDG almost got, like, they had so much time wasted trying to set up for this lane swap, and they ended up in the lane swap that they didn't want. And again, Callista Annie level 2 is absurdly strong. So I feel like SKT really should have expected this because they also knew that Mako and Deft had leashed Clear Love on that side just because they were delayed into the creep wave. So This is just a straight.
Right.
And Wolf blew his flash earlier, so obviously they have
Yeah.
the free pick here.
So good engage, good call, but super obvious. Like SKT
Mhm.
should have known that that was coming from a mile away. And then ping. I don't know who these teams are.
Woo!
Is this
Go
TSM?
TSM. Which one is Divers?
What do you think about the swap back here?
The fact that the reason why they're trying to swap back
Is they're just
they-
trying to avoid them?
Oh, okay. I think, don't they end up back in the 2v2 anyway?
Yeah, they end up back in a 2v2.
Yeah, because my theory was that they were doing the lane swap and they got the first blood, so they thought it would be okay to go back to the 2v2 because they had the advantage, but I think that they were trying to avoid it.
What's super important here as well is that Benki immediately goes into Clear Love's blue buff. Like Clear Love, like it's not as important that you lose buffs as it was like in the past, because obviously you're also trading it for the kill that you got up in the top lane, which is #worth. But it is going to hurt Sejuani's jungle just because she's so fragile early.
And also, like, it really helps your clear to have mana.
And it's just important because they got something out of it. Yes, EDG got the better thing by getting, like, the first blood, and it's not as bad, but, like, SKT traded. They forced something on the map.
It's also just in general a really good pathing. Knowing what side they're
But, yeah, Mako does react to it and chase him out, so...
Get off my fucking lawn. Got it worded, so they'll know exactly what Clear Love is.
But at the same time, because he was there, like, SKT is able to react faster to the fact that they changed the lane swap.
And now there's a teleport.
Yeah, Korra has to burn his teleport, which is actually super important.
And this is actually super important. Like, this is something that, now that I'm looking back at this.
Look at where Pawn is.
Well, you have to remember Marin, when they originally did the swap, had to blow his TP. So his is going to be up when the first dragon fight does happen. Because now Korra blew his, Marin's going to have the TP advantage. They have actually a huge advantage from this already.
And EDG forces this invade when
who
Pawn is back.
Exactly, like, who is making this call? Look at where... And it's not like EasyHoon's, like, just coming to lane and they just had no idea he was there. He's so far forward in that lane and they're like, hey, you want to fight a 4v5?
Yeah.
But obviously they're coming in here because they know Mako had just chased Bengi off of the buff, so they know that they either have the chance to, like, obviously the mentality is here is like, hey, maybe he went back or maybe he went to the other side of, not the other, probably he went back or he's on his red buff. So the idea is either we catch him when he's low and we kill him, or we take the red buff for free and it's a numbers disadvantage.
Well, I think this is mechanical too.
I also think they mistime, like, because they know that...
Yeah.
And they know that Bang and Wolf went back, so they're thinking maybe they have more time before they show up. Or maybe they're thinking that Bang and Wolf are going to go back top already, so that they have that ability and they have a numbers advantage. But obviously, since Bang and Wolf swapped back bottom and they already started bottom, that was a problem.
Ay.
And then now Def just gets, like, systematically
destroyed.
Yeah, because at this point, like, already Callista and Annie is a bad matchup, but because they chase that invade out and Bang has the CS lead because EDG's been doing, like, so many weird swaps, and it's just...
I think it was just really well reactionary play from SKT. Like, A, the swap back into it, but then B, like, the collapse. Like, that's two really good reactionary plays from SK back to back.
I think if Clear Love does get the smite on the red buff, they might have just played it a little bit differently. It just felt like they were really trying to get, like, almost like the last minute red buff, and then when the collapse happened, it was like they didn't expect them to be down that much, and then the fight was just over.
Klo's doing a good job. He's shadowing because his lane's pressed forward. He's taking the Skull Crab, so he's just offering more safety to them as well as being in the area should Bengi show up. Which, as we see, Bengi. Although Bengi makes that gank top lane.
This is another good path, I think, by Bengi.
Deft is just getting manhandled.
EDG spots him out here, though.
Yeah, because he slides by the pink ward.
Well, no, they saw him too from the other bush. But...
But the thing is that nothing was done with this information. See, like when
So
Clear Love,
this is where I was saying that they
Yeah,
can
they
punish
just
Bengi, and that he just like
plays
walks
so
around the river.
passively. Like Quillov's just going about
and like
farming. Shit.
exactly, like Pawn goes up river. No, you exactly like Pawn
Yeah.
goes up river, and Clear Love goes up into the other side of the jungle. So they're not punishing, and they're not taking anything for the fact that they know exactly where Bengi is on the map.
Mhm.
Well, like Bengi's usually his biggest.
Unless I can't remember if Pawn tries to gank or not, gank top, because that would be something that you could get off of Bengi being bottom, but they don't. Okay, never mind. I have
Yeah,
no
but the
idea
thing
what
is,
they're
like
doing.
Marn's even pressed forward. Continue, Anthony.
No, it was just more saying that like usually Bengi's biggest weakness was always being caught out in the enemy jungle, and there's a couple times like even that one, even though that's really brief, because they have this very late game like style team comp, they're not able to capitalize like Bengi is literally just running around the map doing like random stuff half the time, and there's nothing they can
And
respond
it's not
to.
like their vision is bad. Like
Yeah,
their
they
vision is
spot
pretty
him out
good the entire
completely.
game, and they like completely see where Bengi's coming, and they just fall for dumb things.
And this just comes back, I think, once again into the draft phase, unfortunately. Like, if they just had more of an early game-centric team comp, they could collapse on him and force an advantage off of that.
I just feel like they have no idea what, like, Clear Love even, like, still, he knew for that entire period that Bengi was on the bottom side of the map, and he got the scuttle, and Marn was pressed forward. Like, it wasn't going to be the safest gank, but you knew that Rek'Sai wasn't going to be able to ult up or be available for, like, a counter gank, so it's like, why not gank the top lane? Is he just that afraid that Bengi would then transfer that pressure into Dragon? And then Bengi gets it anyway. Koro wastes his flash.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, this is just honestly just another mechanical thing. Just maybe that flash.
Should just walk the extra 2 feet and try to flash that thick wall.
Even though the items are generally the same, you have to remember he only has double Dorans. He doesn't have, like, it's not really like any defensive
Yeah,
items.
and this is the really like for me, it's weird that the way they itemize this way because they have this like late game and they say they want to play safe for
Doran's
late game.
blades. This
Let's
builds
go
into
double
good items.
Dorans. Like what?
Two people went double Dorans, and Lulu went double Dorans. There's a lot of Dorans.
I don't understand why they did that.
I mean, obviously the draft was terrible, but like a lot of this isn't just draft mistakes. There are a lot of like rotational communicate. Like
Yeah, it's just like a total breakdown, unfortunately.
it's so weird. Like they completely collapsed for some reason.
And this is something you guys are obviously more familiar, but this is completely uncharacteristic of normally what they would do.
well, if what they're saying is true, that they're not just trying to like cover their asses for their failure against SKT, and it's like, because it does make sense to me from a storyline perspective that Deft and Pawn, you know, facing SKT are a little bit more afraid. They want to try a passive style game, and they changed their strategy up last second to try to go like late game, and because they're doing it on the fly, they get less than suboptimal picks, and they struggle with it. The thing is this will be proven true when the next time that they play. Like if this happens again, then it's bullshit. Like you just like you shit the bed. But if they completely change it up, then okay, yeah, shit happens. World Elite versus GE Tigers.
I just think the reason why it looks like such a collapse is that they have like a composition doesn't really do much, and then the way that they played out early made it even worse. And from there, it's just like they have no way to get back into the game.
Clear Love is doing absolutely nothing right now.
He's just like sitting in a bush.
Which I do not think that they should be prioritizing Sejuani. They need to prioritize Rek'Sai.
Especially, like I said, and they might not know this, that like Bengi has come out and said that this is like his champion that he's good at right now.
And this is like Bengi going around this long way is extremely good. It's very, very good pathing.
Pawn also did a good job making sure that EasyHoon couldn't run up top lane by having like the angle on him in the mid lane.
Like what you'll see in the TSM game too is like he always loves this gank, even if he's on.
From behind over the wall,
even if he's on red side, he always does the behind over the wall gank with Rek'Sai.
Meemaw top lane. This is like a great response from Marn.
This is another thing with those TP discrepancies, like because now that once again the whole like TPing top, this causes like easy picks.
And just like the communication that play is available, and if they do make like a strength here, like the fact that Bengi has level 6, so he goes back heals and then immediately Rek'Sai ults to the dragon, and since the teleport's been burned, like they can't go back up top with the TP discrepancy, so they have to turn on the objective, and it's fucking free because A, your Rek'Sai's right there, and B, you have a Callista, so like your smite is so potent. And they do this like great rotation plays on Dragon twice in a row. The next time is when they hide behind the wall for Koro to face check, and yeah, they don't get the kill. Like Koro makes a great escape, but just knowing that your tank line is out means that you're gonna have the free Dragon.
Yeah, this
is like exactly what EDG was doing, and of course it's against AHQ. So, but the fact that they would make moves on the fact that they didn't even kill the support, but knowing that the support was low health, and then they got free dragons off that, like it's just very. They're not playing intelligently at all by comparison, and yeah, okay, they're against SKT, which is a much tougher opponent, but their reactions and their decisions based on the circumstances are much worse, and that's not necessarily dependent on your opponent.
That's also not indicative of EDG. Like, this
Yeah.
is not the EDG that was... I don't know who... Like, because these picks, even, like, especially
Yeah.
for the Korean players...
Excuse me, sorry, it was a long day, I'm tired.
My face is, like, bleeding. I'm not even joking. This game hurts me so much that my face is just started bleeding.
Just like spontaneously bleeding.
I was just like, why the fuck did you pick these champions?
And another distinction I want to make here is like the way people view SKT is like they kind of do have these two play styles, especially when they play with EasyHoon. But I think when they played in the finals, when they did have those Cass and Azir picks, they played more like K. Where in this game they play much like S. Like they kind of just fall back to the traditional like we just farm up and push our advantage from the early game and just really, really try to scale it out.
See, I didn't even realize. I was like, we can just have Anthony in here because he's sharing the room with us and he's just been like hanging out with us all weekend. But I'm like realizing, like, hey, this guy watched like every single Korean game.
I agree with that. Like, that's why I said that I think that SK Telecom ultimately does have an advantage over EDG anyways, because I think that they'll get the early advantage and they'll slowly push it, and that's like much more the S style, right?
Yeah.
So
this is
I think
totally
that's
back
the
to
best
S's
way.
roots.
That's the best way to counter the way EDG typically plays, I think.
I think this is a mistake from SKT, though, to trade even on this for the...
Yeah.
The thing, though, is that the bottom is going to give them far more control of the dragon, and because we're still only 13 minutes in, that's obviously the higher priority of the area of control, of like the map control that you want, because it's going to make approaching that dragon pit so much easier, and this is what gets really punished, is the massive waves that SKT are able to build on the bottom of the wave and then play against Baron, which is brilliant. But the fact of the matter is they could have just killed EDG and then taken the towers anyway. So I don't know why they wanted to trade even on, you know, whatever. I mean, it's not an awful trade, but I think like SKT could have just murdered them and taken what they wanted instead.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Like this is once again keeps going back to the composition because it's like it's just almost like S versus S style, which is normally not like the greatest way EDG should play. This is more I wouldn't know as much, but S like the S way the way they used to lose back in the day why it didn't work was they would lose early. Like even the games when we saw in the semis when they played with Tom is that they just got completely shut down in the jungle, and in mid lane just had no impact when like Vladimir couldn't flank. But in this game they're just allowed to smooth by and like there's no real like punishing. Whereas like this is like if they had like a more early game focused team composition they could.
And I think in general, like, EDG's early game decision-making on the new patch has been less than ideal, so I think that that's why, like, the S playstyle works really well.
What do you mean?
against
Like,
them.
what about their decision-making?
Like, they'll contest... We saw this in the AHQ game, too. Like, they'll contest, like, strange
that
frames
fucking
or...
awful fight on the Callista?
Yeah.
There was no reason to fight that. They were so lucky that they were just mechanically the stronger players and the stronger team to fight that bottom Callista play. A better team, SKT, TSM, Fnatic would have punished so hard for that. Continue.
When it gets to mid-game and the towers are gone, like, they're much better at understanding, like, where are we going to take the fights? When are we going to take the fights? Like, how are we going to abuse this terrain? Like, how can we 4-1 split with Baron correctly? So that's much more, like, where EDG's decision-making and playstyle shines. But if you don't let them get, like, an inch to get back into the game and you just play a slow style like this with an early advantage based on EDG's, like, core decision-making earlier, then that's the best way to beat them.
Another big thing here already, we already see a 50 CS lead at 15 minutes, and there's a whole item advantage. Like, he already has his Bloodthirster, and Deft is literally going for, he has an average, but he's literally going for the longest
Oh my god.
health rate. You know?
I just got, like, fucking ganked by an ad. Just got bangied over a wall. Well, the other thing that's really important about that is that SKT are running a triple threat composition. I mean, even with an Annie support, that's like a quadruple threat composition. Whereas EDG, you effectively have Tristana. And with Callista, again, like the fact that the item discrepancy specifically is between the two characters, like Callista only needs 2 items before she's like, I'm ready to fucking roll. Tristana needs 3. So, like, it's just the worst place to get hit right there.
In the goal, like both the mids are pretty irrelevant as far as like their items are really not gonna. They are important to an extent, but it's not as much as so as the Trop that's gonna be an 80 carry role, where both of them have these extremely hard carries.
Continue.
So at this point, SK Telecom completely controls vision and everything on the bottom side of the map, which obviously we're talking about the lead that they have, so they're capitalizing on that well, which means that there's no hope of like trying to get an advantage on the side where they have the deficit. They choose to swap Koro back down and try to continue pushing top and sieging, but because they are so behind, that's going to be much more difficult. At this point, yeah, the pickaxe average play double Dorans, and the fact that they chose to go double Dorans when they wanted to play safe and not really contest anything. Okay, here's the engage on Koro, where they're just like waiting for him to use. Yeah, okay, never mind. This is a different one. Koro's Great Escape. They managed to get this blue buff here, which again, they're going off of the fact that they have vision control behind them, and even though they don't even kill Koro here, they do what EDG did against AHQ in the previous game, and they get one member just down low health or one member to burn flash, and that's enough of an advantage to take the dragon.
At this point, I think I turned to Tony and I was like, this game's just over. Like,
Well,
this is
yeah.
just going to be a systematic destruction.
But why? The question is why is it over? Because like again,
just not.
EDG doesn't have an answer in the mid game at all. Like this is the part of the game where they need to get back in, but it's also the point in the game where they don't really have anything that any tool
They
that
do,
will
yeah,
allow
And no
Tools.
tools to do it.
to do anything.
And that stems from a draft phase, but the reason that they're put in this position in the first place is from playstyle. So
Exactly.
I don't want to just like say like, oh yes, this was
Obviously.
an awful draft, but the decisions that EDG made this game were atrocious.
Mhm.
I don't know if it came down to Def not feeling well.
But it felt like they were trying. It's like they're gonna play SK Telecom S, so we'll try to play SK Telecom S's strategy and see who's better. And it was like, well, that didn't work because this is literally SK Telecom S with Bang. Was that? Sorry, with a
Bangy and
Bangy.
Faker.
well, Bangy, just Bangy.
All right.
It was
Yeah,
literally
it's
S
Bang.
with Bangy.
See, if they had brought you, they could like mind game them, play the Chinese easy hand. But no, like at this point, the game is pretty over. Yeah.
That is something that's fairly curious, just because Pawn's going to be going back for recovery, so we won't be playing like the first few weeks of the next split. Like, what if while Yu's playing, like they're inspired by Easy Hoon and Faker's relationship with SKT and how they shift the team to do something similar?
Yeah.
Because
I think it's
effectively, EDG have exactly the same tools, Pawn and Yu.
Yeah,
Which
very
is like
similar playstyle.
Easy Hoon and Faker.
Yeah.
Another thing too that I noticed that throughout the series and just in general throughout this day was like the way Wolf has just been applying pressure has been a lot different. Like
I think Wolf is the best support of the tournament. It's really
Yeah, I
hard.
already
Wolf-
said that.
It's
Yeah,
really
Wolf-
hard for
Well,
me
Wolf-
between him and Lust Boy, though.
it's always saying like these are both two supports like between Mako and Wolf that roam, right? But Wolf got the ability to just like the minute from even the first play, even when we saw the near pick on Kuro in the bot side, like he's always the one that's gonna be making the picks where Thresh is playing more of like the lantern buddy instead of actually.
The storyline is like monsters of mid, whereas I think that all the supports here have been like the support matchups have been fairly
I
interesting.
think
like,
the
every
top
I think that-
matchups have been really good as well. Like
I think the duos.
I
Yeah,
think
but-
Dyrus is actually playing really well, despite the fact that his scoreline doesn't show it. He's still like
This is
trying
another-
his best. His team's just not unable to support him. Marn is playing like surprisingly really well. Koro, even though he's getting like he made the mechanical outplay right there on Marn. Obviously he shouldn't be that far forward because he doesn't know where Bengi is, so that's his fault. But Koro has played well in these series, despite the fact that he lost.
So a big thing why this all-in happened and why I think Koro dies, because instead of going to the Leandries, which I thought would be the normal build path here, they don't really have a tank line on built up yet.
Hold on, I want to talk about this fight.
Oh, yeah.
Why is Clear left chasing? If he had peeled back to his team and got on Bengi, they could have possibly traded 1-for-1. And then when Def tries, that's full Uzi Eye.
Yeah,
Like people don't know why I dislike Uzi Eye. That was an Uzi Eye move.
It's not a Chinese AD carry move. It's a UZI move.
The small player is going to make the boss side. I just think Koro could have thought he could 1v1 because he went for the arm guard, and then Bengi just came up and ruined the fun. But in most cases, assuming it was a 1v1, Koro would have came out on top, but they just he didn't have any vision on the bottom side, so it was a bit too aggressive.
Free Baron.
And then, so when that team fight, so let's go back to the team fight again. Let's go back. Because this is literally like this team fight. This is the game ender.
Yeah.
Because the minute they get the 21-minute Baron, it's just death by 1,000 cuts.
And this is something that's really.
So they try to make a whimsy pick with Mako.
This is so bizarre because Clearlove. This is the complete opposite of what he's known for. Like he's known for like superior front line and just being like a great tank. And so to go that.
But he chases really deep. And even EDG, it looks like, because the way that SKT was made, they went all the resources onto Mako, and he lives with the wild growth.
Typically in EDG team fights, what you see is that Koro is the zoner, so he's the one who like splits the fight, and then Clearlove is going to be standing in front of the.
But they kind of like swap roles in this particular sense, where
Koro
Kuro
was a really delayed teleport.
Yeah.
That was the problem, is that like they were going for the zone out over, and they didn't have like both of their tools.
And the fact that they were going on to Easy, who has already so many abilities to survive, is very odd. I just didn't understand why Clearlove was going so deep into Easy here.
That was so weird, honestly.
Okay, so.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Do we have anything else to say about this game?
I just think it's a culmination of just a bad draft and then into a bad play style, and then everything from there is just downhill.
What did Clearlove say? He said we're not doing that again?
Yeah, from what the translators told me is that like he said pretty much we're not going to do this again. So
the slow-mo.
Okay, so if they do it again, then
we know
the gloves are off.
Yeah. The other thing is that every time they lost a game in OPL, like the next opponent they face, they just smashed into the ground because they don't like to lose. But so we'll see. Like tomorrow, if they do well against Fnatic and TSM, then if not, oh well. R.I.P. EDG.
I think the biggest story I have to take here is to see what happens if they're on like the more signature champions. Like the Koreans in particular, obviously, like this is just completely out of left field.
They didn't play signature champions in either game, I don't think, for the Koreans. Like, because Urgot, Def isn't really an Urgot player ultimately.
It's just
yeah. And then I don't really think of Pon as a Cassie either.
Okay. I think we're done.
This is the part where I tell everyone to wave.
We're waving.